Thank you, Paul. I am glad to hear I'm well qualified. I'm not as well prepared as Mark. I don't have anything to throw. I can crowd surf after the presentation, but we'll see how we go. So, Re.Group, Australian-owned company, a new private company that some of you might not yet be familiar with. What we're all about, we develop, own and operate infrastructure that recovers resources from the waste stream. I guess probably more relevant to this presentation is what we're not. We're not a particular equipment supplier. We don't have a particular equipment that we are trying to find where that fits the market. What we're doing is finding where are the problems in the market and finding, our core skills are in selecting the equipment and the gear that can process that material and make it into products that we've got a usable end market for. And that's, really what we're all about. So a little bit more about our business platform, I guess. Across that build, own, operate, obviously we've got skills across the required areas. A lot of the team who are in here have come from the global renewables stable, so a lot of faces that a lot of you will be familiar with, and certainly a long track record of operating the biggest advanced waste treatment facility in Australia. We are a separate company. We work quite closely with the global renewables team, but we're a separate company. And as I say, we're really focused on new projects and also in optimising existing assets. That's what we do. In terms of finding those materials or the parts of the waste stream that we can recover, this is an evolution, and this is something that I find really exciting when you look over the last 10 years. And I know there's a lot of faces here who have been coming out to this conference for 10 years and hearing the updates as you go along. But each year, there's new markets becoming available, and there's a better quality product that are going into those markets. And this continuous improvement, we actually have quite a long track record in this space at the moment, which is an exciting point to be. It's not novel. What we're talking about isn't a new idea. It's been operating for over a decade. When we come to looking at new markets, so the alternate raw materials, that's one that I find particularly exciting. That's the organic products that are going into brick making to make a better quality brick, and that's one of those examples that to me is really exciting, because what you're doing is not just finding a place where you can use a waste derived product, you're actually putting it in as a better quality product than what the original was. It provides massive advantages in the brick making process in terms of producing a lighter brick, reducing the savings, the energy costs of making those bricks. So it's a beautiful example of where we all want to get to with all these products, which is we're something where there's not just a home for it, but a real demand for it, where we can really make things better. When we come around to looking at new opportunities, I guess the big focus today, you wouldn't be surprised in New South Wales at the moment, is about the alternate fuels, and this is a real step change for what the options are available to us now. So I'm going to spend most of the time talking about it, but I guess the process for alternate fuels is the same as the process it is for any other part of the waste stream. So our approach is firstly to define, what is it that we want to achieve, to, pretty clear on why are we trying to do something, what are we trying to get out of this, and to understand the rules. So, once we have that big picture of what do we want to do and what's the realms of possibility, then there's this gamut of solutions that you can possibly choose from, and then working through those and work out, well, which is the best approach. And then, designing the solutions that achieve that approach. And I guess that process, coming from our background, rather than being a particular equipment supplier, taking that process of going, righto, what equipment do we need to get the outcome that we want, rather than where can we use the equipment that we have to get a reasonable outcome. Looking at the energy from waste opportunity, and this is a very, very exciting opportunity. I don't know how Steve Beeman managed to stay as calm as he was this morning when he was presenting about this. It's such a step change, such an exciting time for the industry. It's really making completely changing the dynamics and the opportunities that are out there. So when we look at what are we trying to do? Why are we interested in this space at all? It's really about that common objective, which is to safely and efficiently recover resources from the waste stream, energy resources from the waste stream that's otherwise going to go to landfill. Now, the New South Wales Government's objectives on this front are very, very clear. The energy from waste policy, nice and short, nice and clear. The two key issues: ensure that there's minimal risk of harm to human health and the environment, which is largely achieved through the standards applied where you're using the fuel. And then the other key objective is to ensure that higher order waste management options aren't undermined. And that's the novel resource recovery criteria that limit the amount of waste that can go into the waste stream. I know that the EPA has copped a fair bit of criticism about that. It is very novel, and I know that it's something that's it's a very different situation to what's available in Europe. For me, personally, I think that it's bloody fantastic that they've actually gone, everyone pays lip service to the waste hierarchy. Everyone says, we only want to do energy recovery where it's possible, or where it doesn't undermine the waste hierarchy. The New South Wales government, to my mind, is the first time that anyone's gone, righto, we're not just going to pay lip service to that idea, we're actually going to try and enshrine in here a way to make that happen. And again, that's part of we look at that as the rules for the game, and we go, well, how do we operate within that rules? So, I know there's a lot of councils in here. I'm not going to lecture on what the overall council objectives are, but again, I think that's pretty understood. Councils primarily want to provide a safe and effective service to your communities, and something that meets the community's needs. And once you've got that gamut of options, it's then about finding, well, what's the most cost-effective way to achieve those outcomes. There's no point in it being cheap if it's going to kill people or cause massive damage, but you don't want to be paying more than you have to, obviously, to get to the point that you want to be at. I'll skip across to this because I think pictures are much more exciting, and I'm quite proud of that slide. I'm not very good in PowerPoint, so that took me a while. But this is, I guess, the concept of how we look at that, the opportunity, and what have we got? What can we play with, and what are our options here? We have a red bin that we can't in New South Wales just put into the mass burn incinerator type energy recovery solutions that are commonplace in Europe. It's not going to happen here, so we'll not beat our heads around that. We'll go, okay, what else can we do? If we can't put all of that bin in there and we have to pick some of the material to go in, it's about picking the smartest material. If we're not going to have to put it all in, the problem with this is not that it's not very good at what it does. I fully believe that they can be very safely and efficiently operated. There's a huge track record in it. The issue is that it's very, very expensive to build something that's got to be bulletproof to take every part of the waste stream. And if we can't put every part of the waste stream in it, well, let's be a bit smarter about what parts of the waste stream we're going to have, and what does that do for what's the energy solution at the back end look like. My ideal world is having this sort of processing option in the middle, which is where you've got an integrated facility. So not just having one product and being able to pull out all the material resources that you can, and then having the material that doesn't have a material resource, so you can't recycle it, you can't do anything else with it, directing that to the energy, which is fully aligned with what the EPA is trying to achieve, and it makes a lot of sense to me. It makes a lot of sense on a commercial basis as well. Once you have that fuel material and you prepared it so it's actually a real fuel, it's not a waste, it's a cleverly designed, process engineered fuel, you then have all sorts of options as to where you can possibly use that. And obviously the approach is to try and displace some of the fossil fuels. It's not about, for us, it's not about just trying to build new infrastructure to find a waste disposal option. It's about finding, well, where can we actually refuel something and do a smarter job. In terms of what that fuel preparation actually looks like, obviously completely depends on exactly what the waste stream and the scale, but the general steps are pretty clear. What you're targeting is the high CV, low moisture materials, plastic films, nappies, textiles, that sort of thing, that really don't have a higher purpose in life when we can't do anything with. And I'm only talking about the mixed waste stream. Obviously, if you don't have them in the mixed waste stream, all sorts of options, and that's great. What I'm talking about is what's in the red bin or the mixed waste stream that is otherwise going to go to landfill if we don't intervene. You then, once you've got that, the main core target material, obviously you're removing the problem material. So you're removing the heavy inert materials and also the problematic things such as PVCs, the classic, chlorine's a big issue, but in terms of the technology to remove those sorts of things, it's nothing that isn't off the shelf available. Tytech, I remember reporting when the first Tytex went into Australia, but that was a very, very long time ago. They're commonplace, it's very off the shelf sort of technology. Once you have the core fuel product ready to go, it's about making sure that it meets the end user's demand. So it's at the size and the specification that suits whoever actually wants to use it, and off we go. We have a few different areas, but making a product to meet a user specification rather than just having a waste and going, oh geez, what do we do with it now, is the smarter way to go. That's the big question that everyone's got, and don't bother reading to the end of the slide. Everyone's looking to see if I've written down who's the end demand. Unfortunately, no, I won't be talking about that today. But to be honest, it is moving very quickly. Like New South Wales, we are very focused on local demand. There is a very established international demand for this sort of fuel, and these aren't. There's a perception, I guess, about exporting that it's going to dodgy users. These are multinational companies. They are very good at what they do. And, you know, Lafarge runs a lot of cement kilns. You know, they know what they're doing when they take alternate fuels. It's not an issue with that. The question is that the best way to do it? And if we can close that loop locally and have more control of that supply chain, it brings all sorts of advantages. And that's very much our focus. And I'm thrilled to say that in a very short space of time, in only 12 months since we've had an energy from waste policy, there are really significant demand emerging. So we're certainly working with a number of heavy energy users who have a big appetite for alternate fuels, and we're really excited about the fact that they're excited about taking this material. It's just opening up a whole new market for something that has been a real problem. I know there's a whole session tomorrow on about when is a waste not a waste, or when is it a product, and for me, I don't want to discourage people from going for an hour and a half definition, but yeah, it's pretty simple. Once it's processed to meet a defined end specification for someone who wants to use it, it's not a waste, it's a product. It's a product that someone's asking for, and that's a pretty simple equation for me. So, in terms of what does all this mean, why am I so darn excited about it all? Just running through this facility, I'm sure that everyone is well familiar with. This is the Global Renewables Eastern Creek facility. Has been operating for more than 10 years. I don't know exactly what the number is of tonnes processed, but it's not there to process tonnes, it's there to divert tonnes. And last year, cracking that milestone of having diverted over 1 million tonnes of waste from landfill. It's a serious plant, does 220,000 tonnes per annum, and it's about to have a major step change upgrade from what it's been doing. It's consistently at 65% diversion, or it's at 65% diversion. The next step is going to take it up to above 90%. So, a lot of you will be aware that it was awarded a $5 million grant under the Waste Less Recycle More program to install a fuel circuit, which is being implemented right now. This is what the sort of mass balance there looks like once that goes in. So, we're not talking about changing the whole idea of that facility and directing everything to fuel. What we're saying is that it was at 65%. We're still getting the recycled products, we're pulling out everything we can. Frankly, you get paid for it. Of course you're going to pull it out and not send it off to an area where it's a worse economic outcome. Compost markets, those are well established. That facility is cranking out 70,000 tonnes per annum of high-end OGM product, of which most of that's going into agricultural markets. What was left previously that there was no solution for was the filmy residual plastics, the residuals that were being disposed to landfill, because well, what else can you do with it? It's dirty mixed plastic, there's no recycling market for it. What else do you do? Installing that fuel circuit will mean that facility goes above 90%, and it's a fantastic outcome in terms of getting closer to the goal of no waste to landfill from that facility, and B, it's also a great commercial change. So, in terms of the overall summary of what it's going to do for inclusion within an integrated facility, there's at the scale of Global Renewables Eastern Creek, that's a very big facility. Diversion rates above 90% are immediately achievable as long as there's demand for the fuel. And as I've said, there is an interim demand. There is well-established international markets knocking on the door. But the exciting part of this is that the local demand is really coming online quickly. And these are private organisations that can move quickly. When they make a decision to do something, things come together somewhat more swiftly than often happens in the local government world. So the demand is developing quick, and in terms of being able to supply that demand, it's a bit of a call to arms that we need to be able to move faster in terms of having the processing capability ready for it. I think that the really interesting question for the moment is, does this whole new market, this whole new demand, does that change things around? Does that change the whole dynamics for how we get the entry point into processing mixed waste? So obviously that Global Renewables and that breed of MBT facilities started focusing on trying to attack the organics market. It's the big part of the waste stream. It obviously makes sense from a mass balance side, but as I think anyone who's operated those facilities knows, it's bloody hard work making a high quality compost out of mixed waste. It's a hard way to do it, and it's been proven. It's working. It's coming out fabulously. But there's a lot of people who went through a few sleepless nights in between, trying to get it to that point. if there's a really strong demand for the alternate fuels, that sort of material that we're talking about is a lot easier to get out of the waste stream. If that's easier to get out, do we flip things around? And instead of the global renewables model where you start with organics and then you go through and after 10 years you add a fuel circuit to go from 65 to 90, do we flip things around and go, well, for someone who's entering into that mixed waste processing space, do we start out with take the easy wins? Do we take the easy runs and chase that fuel material? And then what you're left with is the high organic fraction, which you then start to go, okay, well maybe I bolt on solutions for that over time. I think that's the exciting conversations to be had at the moment. And for people that previously thought that mixed waste processing just wasn't going to suit them and their community, this is a very, very major change to the market dynamics, and it's something that's just needs to be completely re-evaluated. It is a real game changer. In terms of the amount of demand, it is very significant. The users that we're working with have very large demand, but it is still a finite demand. There's no doubt that this exciting opportunity that I'm talking about, there will be the fast followers who get into that will enjoy the benefits, and I guess the people who take too long to get to it, we may find that there's not as much demand for their fuel material in the future. Again, it's a good reason to start having a very, very good look at whether this is something that might be useful for you and your community.
1 minute, thank you.
Right. I don't know if I need to talk through my predictions for the coming years, or we just wait for 5 years and or 3 years and see if I was right or wrong. But I think that this sort of enhancement to existing facilities, it's a no-brainer, especially if there's a strong local demand for a whole new product class. New facility development, and especially regional facilities, the dynamics here, the ability to be able to build a facility for a much smaller regional scale has changed as well through a number of different factors. Expansion into other waste streams, into that to the dry C&I, Mike, that we were talking about earlier this morning, or that you were talking about earlier this morning. And I think that this approach to having an integrating facility that's not just an energy facility, not just a materials facility, but picking the markets, making products to suit the end markets, and taking that waste stream and looking at it as which parts of this waste stream can I send to where in a smarter way than, hopefully not too much of it has to go to a big hole in the ground.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.